Hello, I'm John Arnette. Week 3 now officially in the books after last night's Green Bay-Seattle game. Before we get on to previewing Week 4, I want to just quickly talk about that blown call at the end of last night's game. Can you believe that? Golden Tate, Seattle receiver, awarded a touchdown when he clearly did not catch the ball. Jennings, the Green Bay defensive back, caught the ball in the air and came down with the ball. Tate had one arm wedged in between Jennings' arms. The refs, the bumbling replacement refs, awarded the touchdown to the Seattle Seahawks on the last play of the game. I mean, he gave Seattle the win. The thing that was even more unbelievable to me was after they reviewed the play on instant replay over and over again, they came out and said the ruling on the field was upheld. Incredible stuff. Obviously, people now outraged at these replacement officials, even more outraged than they were before. To me, that might have been the final nail of the coffin on these replacement officials. I cannot see this lockout continuing really beyond the next few days. Can you? I mean, it's going to become the story of the NFL as it continues, the season wears along. And that's not what Roger Goodell, the story of the NFL should be the action on the field, which teams are playing well, surprises of the league, teams like the Arizona Cardinals, not these terrible, terrible replacement officials. And to be fair, I've been on the side of these replacement officials aren't that much worse than the regular officials. To me, these last 2 weeks of the season, I've never heard so much praise heaped on the regular NFL officials, who were bad in their own right. I mean, the NFL was known for having the worst officials of any professional sports league, but now we're talking about those guys like they're some sort of experts. Well, certainly the call at the end of last night's game was inexcusable, and I expect to see something now happen with this lockout situation. But beyond that call, the Seattle Seahawks, and I'm going to anger some Seattle fans with saying this because I know everyone loves Russell Wilson now, but is it just me, or did Seattle fail to fix the one thing that was wrong with their team? I mean, you look at Seattle last year, excellent power running team. Marshawn Lynch can run the ball. They have a good run blocking offensive line, a good defense, good solid defense. The quarterback position was where they were really lacking last year. And even though Russell Wilson is a rookie, and so he might be the guy for the future, maybe Seattle's future is bright with Russell Wilson. In terms of the present, the now, does he give you anything more than Tavares Jackson gave you last year? I believe the answer to that is no. Watch last night's game. I mean, they're limited on offense. They're limited in the passing game. I believe he completed 10 passes the entire game. With less than 5 minutes left, he had 50-some-odd yards passing the entire game, and 40 of those were on one play, the deep touchdown pass to Golden Tate early in the game. So, just Seattle, when I look at this team, they're still a clearly flawed team, and where they're flawed is they can't pass the ball. And I'm not saying that Russell Wilson can't play or is not going to be a good quarterback. I'm saying in comparison to other playoff-level teams, they struggle to pass the ball. And that was exactly the case last year. And they went out this offseason, tried to address that, signed Matt Flynn, gave him some big free agent dollars. Then, of course, the drafting of Russell Wilson. And maybe Wilson is better than Flynn. I'm not saying Flynn's the answer. But clearly right now, the Seattle Seahawks are in the same place they were last year, a good team who can't pass the ball down the field. Now, that's it for that. I'm not going to pick on Russell Wilson here. And again, I know he's become the real darling around Seattle right now, so I might anger some Seahawk fans in saying that. But as an objective person, I don't care about the Seattle Seahawks one way or the other. They look just like they looked last year to me. Anyway, on to these Week 4 games. Got an exciting slate of football games on to this Week 4. Thursday night game, not so much. Baltimore Ravens most likely going to blow out the Cleveland Browns. Ravens a 13-point home favorite in BETDAQ on that game. But there are some games on Sunday that are very interesting. I want to mention a couple of them. The New England Patriots on the road playing the Buffalo Bills. New England is open as a 3.5-point favorite in this game on BETDAQ. That strikes me as a little bit low. Now, New England is actually one game behind Buffalo in the standings now, in the AFC standings. When's the last time that's happened? I bet it's been 10 years or more. Buffalo, of course, 2-1. New England 1-2. You couldn't have guessed that could have happened even after the first week of this season when Buffalo was blown out by the New York Jets and New England really put one to the Tennessee Titans on the road. However, these last 2 weeks we saw New England lose in a thrilling game on Sunday night to the Baltimore Ravens. We've seen Buffalo win 2 in a row now. So New England going on the road, only a 3.5-point favorite over the Buffalo Bills. Early lean towards New England in that game, but if this past weekend taught us anything, it's these short home underdogs in the NFL. Early in this NFL season, we all think we know everything. We think, of course, New England is much better than Buffalo. Of course, the Arizona Cardinals aren't a playoff team. We might want to reevaluate our opinions. We saw this past week several games that looked maybe suspicious, at least that's what I call them, sort of fishy lines, looked like very similar to this New England-Buffalo game where the visiting team, you think, well, they're much better than the home team. New England, you think, is much better than Buffalo. They should be favored by more than 3.5, right? Well, look at this past weekend's games. Pittsburgh Steelers, much better than 3.5 points better than the Oakland Raiders, right? Philadelphia Eagles going on the road to Arizona. Philadelphia only favored by 3 or 4. That seemed a little low. San Francisco going on the road to Minnesota. San Francisco only laying 6.5 or 7 in that game, depending on which line you got in on. That seemed kind of low. We all know what happened in all these games. The home underdog won all these games. Last night, the Green Bay Packers, 15-1 in the regular season a year ago, facing the Seattle Seahawks, not a playoff team last year, not expected to be a playoff team this year, rookie quarterback. Green Bay only a 3-point favorite. We said before the game it felt really, really fishy, and sure enough, Seattle won that game. Now, I know Green Bay would have won and covered had it not been for that weird end-of-the-game play, but it was what it was. Seattle won that game, so we saw 4 home underdogs this last week who a lot of people expected the favorites in that game, the road teams, the favorites to be better teams heading into the season. A lot of people expected the favorites to cover in these games this past weekend, and all 4 home teams, home underdogs, ended up winning. So this coming week, the Buffalo Bills as a short home underdog, they fit that profile exactly. The New England Patriots, most people expect the Patriots to be better. A lot of people will be taking New England and laying the points. However, Buffalo, this line, fishy. Buffalo could be a live home dog here. Now, I'll come out and say it right now. I'm not going to be betting on the Bills in this game. Not sure I'll be doing anything at all, but the Buffalo Bills, who have won 4 division games in the past 4 seasons, not quite ready to make the leap and say they're about to beat the New England Patriots and send the Patriots to 1-3. Another game that's just like this with the short home underdog, the New York Jets hosting the San Francisco 49ers. San Francisco a 4-point favorite. Now, this is one I said I wasn't going to bet on Buffalo, but I don't know. Early in the week, at least, the Jets look like an interesting option here. San Francisco coming across the country. I'm well aware of how good San Francisco looked the first 2 weeks of the season against Green Bay and Detroit. Looked like the best team in the league, probably. But they did lose a puzzling game last week in Minnesota. Now, don't want to make too much of that. Every NFL team loses a couple of games, but certainly the Vikings, by no means a powerhouse. That San Francisco offense was, I don't want to say shut down, but definitely limited by the Minnesota defense. A Minnesota defense that had looked very bad in the first 2 weeks of the season against Jacksonville and Indianapolis. Now, the Jets have a good defense. They can play some defense. So look for the Jets to really limit this 49ers offense. This isn't going to be a situation like week 1 in San Francisco against Green Bay where they're able to push around that Green Bay defense, or even week 2 against an underperforming Detroit defense. This Jets defense is legitimately a top 10 unit. I was going to say top 5, but now with Darrelle Revis, their best defensive back, maybe the best defensive player, out for the season, that's going to hurt that defense. Still, a top 10 unit, better than any defense San Francisco has faced this year. I do expect the Jets to keep this one low scoring, make this one a low scoring game. The Jets offense is another story. 48 points in week 1 against the Bills. I'm sure Jets fans were pleasantly surprised about that, but can't be too happy with what you've seen the last 2 weeks. I know they pulled out the win this past Sunday against Miami, but Mark Sanchez looked really, really bad for most of that game. And if I were Jets fans, this offense looks more like the offense a lot of so-called experts were predicting from the New York Jets this year after they failed to score an offensive touchdown in 3 preseason games. Jets offense not trending in a good direction, and we all know what kind of defense San Francisco 49ers play. However, I do think the Jets as a home underdog here might be a good play. Again, it's extremely early in the week. We don't make any of these decisions until much later in the week. But this line caught my eye as a home underdog. Well, San Francisco coming across the country, coming off a tough loss, facing the best defense they faced all year. Remains to be seen. That could be a play there here later in the week. Another game I want to mention, 2 of the surprise teams in the league. The Arizona Cardinals, the surprise team in the league at 3-0, hosting the Miami Dolphins. And I know Miami's only 1-2, but in my book, they're a surprise team. After what I saw heading into the season, throughout the preseason, and what I saw in week 1 out of the Miami Dolphins, I and many other people thought they were going to be the worst team in the entire league. I mean, on offense, what do they have? Rookie quarterback Ryan Tannehill, no proven playmakers at wide receiver. Reggie Bush is playing better than he has throughout most of his NFL career, probably so far early in this year, putting together his best NFL season. Seems to have developed finally into a feature back. But Miami has played a lot better these last 2 weeks than I thought they were going to, than many people thought they were going to. Should have beat the Jets last week. Their kicker, Dan Carpenter, had a field goal attempt to win that game. Going on the road to Arizona, Again, the Cardinals have been a surprise team, but they aren't blowing anybody out. I take that back. They did blow out Philadelphia last week, didn't they? But Arizona in their first 2 games against Seattle, New England, a couple of close wins. That offense has been better, I guess, than a lot of people expected. Kevin Cobb now leading that offense after John Skelton, after the preseason, had won that job. But Skelton going down with injury, and Cobb ain't going to lose that job anytime soon, at least if the Cardinals keep on winning. I do expect this to be a somewhat low-scoring game. So Arizona minus 6.5 here. I don't know, that feels like a lot of points. This Dolphins team has surprised me for a couple of weeks in a row. They will be going on the road this week. I understand that's a little bit of a different challenge. They did not respond very well on the road in week 1 against Houston. Still, this Arizona offense, clearly not an explosive offense. Miami coming in there getting 6.5. If this number moves to 7, this might be a time for a Miami play here, in my opinion. Now, again, very early in the week, not making any final calls on any of these games. Just giving you my observations and opinions after taking a first look at these Week 4 lines. Another game I want to mention, game that should be a very competitive game, a team that has really disappointed me so far this season is the Philadelphia Eagles. I had picked Philadelphia to win the NFC East heading into this year. Last year, the self-proclaimed dream team that really fell flat on their face started out 4-8 to begin the season. However, they won their last 4 games. This is a very talented team, especially on offense. When you see this offense get rolling, they can look as good as any offense in the league. I mean, not only Michael Vick and what he can do spreading it around to those receivers, Deshaun Jackson, Jeremy Maclin, tight end Brent Selleck, but they have a really underrated running back in LaShawn McCoy, one of the best 10 running backs in the league, really balances out that offense. The Philadelphia offense, an impressive unit. They appeared to be improved on defense through the first 2 weeks of the season, but really fell flat on their face last week against Arizona, getting blown out by the Cardinals out there on the road. I was surprised to see that. I did not bet on that game, but I leaned towards Philadelphia. And quite frankly, I expected a lot more out of the Philadelphia offense that was just shut down by the Arizona Cardinals last week. Now this week, Philadelphia hosts division rival New York Giants. The Eagles installed as a 1-point favorite in this game on BETDAQ. Again, this is a game where we're basing it on our opinions and what we think the Eagles are going to be. We expect the Eagles. We expect them to be a good team. We expect them at home in a situation like this, backs against the wall after losing to Arizona last week. We expect them to come out with an inspired performance, maybe beat the New York Giants, a team they know very well. However, remember, last week we saw the Giants sort of return to their Super Bowl form, a dominating win over the Carolina Panthers. The Eagles, as we mentioned, really struggled on the road in Arizona. Hey, last year, don't fall into the same trap we fell into last year. Last year, early in the year, we kept on waiting for this Philadelphia Eagles team. We kept on saying, okay, this is the week they get it together. Okay, this is the week they start playing up to their potential, up to their capability. Never really happened. Started the season losing 8 out of their first 12 games. Are they just not as good as we think they are, or do we give them more credit than we should be giving them? New York Giants going on the road in Philadelphia. I don't know about the home team here. I do lean towards the road team, the Giants, as 1-point underdogs here. They just look better at this point in the season. Now, you don't want to read anything don't want to read more into it than we should. We're only 3 weeks into the season, and I did expect Philadelphia to be really good this year. Again, I predicted them to win the NFC East, but I'm definitely not comfortable right now taking Philadelphia and actually giving a point to the Giants after what I saw out of both of these teams last week. Now, to me, maybe the most interesting game of the week. BETDAQ does not yet have a line on this game yet. The New Orleans Saints going on the road to face the Green Bay Packers. The New Orleans Saints have been the biggest disappointment in the NFL through 3 games, 0-3, losing their last game to the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, unbelievable. They were up 24-6 near the end of the third quarter of that game, still ended up losing to a Kansas City team that through 2 weeks had looked like maybe the worst team in the entire NFL. So what do you make of the Saints right now? I mean, what's to make of them? They've been an absolute mess. This defense has been as bad as any defense in the league. And their offense, after looking sort of like themselves in weeks 1 and 2 against Washington and Carolina, even though they lost those games, the Saints offense looked like we expected them to look. A couple of self-inflicted wounds there that hurt them a little bit. They would have scored over 40 against Washington had they not sort of fumbled away a couple of good opportunities and a couple of silly turnovers. That offense did not look like we're used to seeing them last week, especially towards the end of that game. A Kansas City Chiefs defense that had been burned in the first 2 weeks of the season really stood up against that Saints offense last week, leaving me and I know a lot of other people sort of scratching their heads. What do you expect out of the Saints team this week on the road in Green Bay? Green Bay, we saw them lose that gutting game last week to go to 1-2 on the year now. This offense has not yet been what we expected them to be, what we saw last year. The well-oiled machine that won 15 games in the regular season. They just haven't been that group so far. I know they faced some tough defenses. Seattle last night can certainly play some defense. San Francisco in week 1, as good a defensive team as there is in the league. New Orleans is a bad defense, so I expect the Green Bay Packers to pick it back up and score a lot of points here. But then again, I expected them to look better last night than they looked last night, and better in week 1 than they looked against San Francisco 49ers. So I don't really know what to make of this game. I hesitate before sort of throwing something out there. Now in Vegas, again, there's not a line yet on this game on BETDAQ. In Vegas, the Green Bay Packers last night, as soon as that game was over, opened as a 5-point favorite in this game. And in a couple of casinos, the William Hill Sportsbook, remember William Hill's now running several sportsbooks out in Vegas, and at the Stations Casino, this line has already moved to 7.5. So some quick early Green Bay movement. Green Bay favored by 7.5 in this game at a couple of Vegas casinos out there. A couple of the other casinos still have Green Bay listed as a 5-point favorite. Again, two teams we expect to see a lot of scoring in this game. The total has not yet been released on BETDAQ or in Vegas. Expect that total to be somewhere near 60. Maybe not that high, but definitely I would think over 50. Should be a fascinating game. Which of these two teams is going to go on to become a real disappointment, and which of these teams is going to sort of steady the ship or calm the waters anyway? I guess most people early you would expect Green Bay to win this game, but the Packers have been disappointing. And these Saints, just when you count them out, I've seen too much out of the Saints offense over the last couple of years. I saw Drew Brees on the podium after this game, day before yesterday, saying we are going to turn it around. We are going to be a great team. So there's still some resolve there in Drew Brees and this Saints offense. So 7.5, a lot of points to be given this Saints offense right now. But this should be a fascinating game. Looking forward to talking about this game more, breaking this game down as the week goes along. New Orleans at Green Bay, definitely going to be a game that I'm paying attention to on Sunday. Another game, really good game, sort of cap off the week. Chicago Bears visiting the Dallas Cowboys. This will be your Monday night game. Both these teams very similar, I think, in how they've started the seasons and how they've started their seasons. Both 2-1, but both with serious questions. The Bears and the Cowboys, are they legitimate contenders? Their Week 2 results would say no. Bears getting blown out by the Green Bay Packers, and Dallas laying a real egg on the road in Seattle. Seattle just blowing them off the field up there. Their performances last week, both of these teams facing teams that aren't expected to be playoff teams. The St. Louis Rams, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Both of them ended up pulling out wins after struggling for a long while. I think when you look at these teams, the Bears and the Cowboys, in both these teams, you see talented teams you expect maybe to be better than they have been, teams that could develop into serious contenders as the year goes along. Remember, last year's Super Bowl champs, the Giants, at this point in the season, Week 4, even in Week 12 or 13, you might not have considered them a Super Bowl contender, but they really solidified towards the end of the season, played their best football in the playoffs, and ended up winning the Super Bowl. Same thing could happen with either one of these teams, Bears and the Cowboys. They both have the talent. It appears as though they have the talent to compete with any team in the league, but not able to put that together yet, not only last season, but so far this year. So really curious what we're going to see out of these two teams. Dallas installed as a 3.5-point home favorite on BETDAQ right now. That line feels about right to me. Wouldn't put it past the Bears, though, to go in there and pull out a home win over the Cowboys if that Chicago secondary can hold up against that Dallas passing attack. Because the secondary is the Achilles heel for the Chicago Bears. They were not really tested last week against the St. Louis Rams, a team that does not throw the ball very well. This will be a significant test this coming week against the Dallas Cowboys. Again, Dallas opening is a 3.5-point favorite in that game. Now, we'll be getting to these games and all of the rest of the games throughout the week here on BETDAQ NFL. If you haven't seen the site, we encourage you to check it out. We release bettors previews on every one of these games throughout the week, in addition to any other news and information that you might find interesting. Now, if you have any opinions or feedback on the site, I encourage you, get them to me, john@betdaqnfl.com. I'll answer those emails if it's appropriate. I'll get right back to you. That's john@betdaqnfl.com. Again, we're 3 weeks into the NFL season. Can't believe we're already to Week 4. There's only 17 weeks of the season, folks, so savor these weeks. Enjoy them week by week, day by day. I know I am. Hope you are too. Again, excited about the slate of games here in Week 4. We'll be talking about them more and more here on the site, here on BETDAQ NFL throughout the week. I'm John Arnette for BETDAQ NFL. Hope to hear from you soon.